All right, all right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this round table, flat table, two-dimensional table made of circles. So it is in some ways round.
The shitty ass table.
That I whipped up the night beforehand. We unexpectedly, not everyone could make it to Lancer this week. And so I had the idea to have just like a brief hangout and chat, since we couldn't warn people that we weren't going to be here for a stream. So the reason we're 13 minutes late to start in stream is because science had to be done, to make up this little. If you will, imagine me walking through the etherical void, sweeping things off of tables, desperately trying to make it room for hangouts. But I'm Rattlebones, as you can probably gather. I just have, a body this time. But also we have all the other fine folks that most of the other fine folks that we usually play Lancer with. Everyone we play with Lancer with is delightful. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. We have Bright Eyes, who normally
Hello.
plays Hero. We have is everyone Harvest Moon, are you with us?
I am. I'm just
Oh my
trying to
God.
get the sun under control.
It still gets me every time.
Isn't it great?
I
We
like
have
it.
Harvestman, who usually plays Bookkeeper, and we have Lauren, who plays Olmo.
Hello.
In our various forms, stellar, fungal, uh, uh, fauna, eel, and skeletal, as it were. So hello, everyone. It's so good to hear from you. I was gonna invite you all here to chat about our thoughts on Lancer so far and what we're looking forward to, because I feel like I'm very excited, but also I like checking in with people about how they're enjoying the times, the adventures. Uh, how are we feeling about? Goodness, there's so many things of so many varied feelings. Uh, how are we feeling about the Maw? Why don't we, let's start with the most pressing hour of the day. Well, how are we feeling about the Maw?
Uh, yeah.
I
Uh,
really love watching, and I like it when enemies are specifically made for other characters. I really like watching other characters be put under duress, just because I think story wise and character development wise, it's very interesting.
I
it
feel
definitely
like
has been interesting interacting with the mall. Definitely, it's been very interesting, like story opportunities for Olmo, I'll say.
I've said this before. I don't think I've said this like on stream, but I've said this to y'all when we've been talking about it. Like, your decisions are capable of blowing big holes in the plot. Like, I very intentionally design when I run games. I very intentionally design them so that your actions change the course of the world around them. And like, the part of this plot was designed around the Maw appearing in this way. And it's been a treat, because like I feel like the Maw is something that I hadn't sought out in the lore until Lauren was like, "Would you? Hey, I found this thing," which was so good and so exciting.
I don't know, like I gotta write just a little miniature novel for every character I play, even if it doesn't come up.
It was so good.
I
I
feel
like
that.
how we almost got out. One of the regular things in the games that I've played with Lauren is that you do seem to start a plague in every game where I've seen you as a player. Like,
Hey,
it's so specific.
I mean, not intentionally most of the time.
I mean, but that's the thing, is that so much of the time it is intentional. Your character's like, I'm gonna make a disease.
I mean, I guess kind of. The first time, at the very least, the character was operating under having, like, a Templar inside their head when they were a demon, so...
I was not actually there for that arc of that game, but that's amazing. That's so good.
Yeah, no, part of why that character was acting that way was because they'd grown up, right, having, like, been the amalgamated consciousnesses of a bunch of people that died in the Crusades. So they
Oh.
had some really fucked up ideas, right, about what they were and what their role in the universe was initially, and a very strange relationship to religion. Eventually worked through that. Then had a Templar essentially placed in their head, and started having a lot of those problems brought back up in a very traumatic way.
That's fascinating. By the way, I don't know if anyone knows this. We play role playing games a lot, and all of us are we play deeply normal characters in our role playing games all the time. We all have normal things going on. I just love that we've managed to rustle up like a robot plague for this one. I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful.
It's good. I am really worried. They took, I don't know, Olmo took precautions to make sure it wouldn't spread, so I'm hoping it won't. But also, it's definitely fucked up the lives of like the people that got in those mechs for sure.
Yeah, I deeply worried about the guy who's in the mech that we haven't seen yet. Who just what is the state? I'm very curious about the state of living. Like what state of because my worst nightmare is that man is somehow fused flesh-wise into that mech.
You should definitely ask Baz that more aggressively, because Olmo is going to like defer if Baz just keeps saying like, no, they don't want to talk about it. Like, they will defer.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
the problem is there's a lot of things Bastion should do, but the thing is that he's one 18-year-old boy. There's only so much he can do.
Right.
And currently he's trying to make sure that none of his friends or family die or his boyfriend dies because, there's a fucking crazy man out there who has proven himself to be nigh unkillable. Who is crazy on combat drugs.
Oh yeah, are we gonna mention the man? Are we gonna dig in?
Who we helped bring back, right? Or
Not unkillable is less of a thing about him and more about us being good bodyguards. Like, it's solely our fault that he's still alive. Like 3 times.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that the reason we didn't kill him is because it would have been really, really bad and escalated violence really quickly if we'd killed him, which made sense. And then Mars's character wasn't sure whether or not he was supposed to die, and so brought him back.
What does that mean, though?
Oh, like, Mars was under the Penn was like, I don't know if Elizabetta wants him to die or not, and so put a corrective on him instead of letting him die. We also don't know that shot would have killed him.
Mm-hmm, that's true, too. Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, that makes more sense that, like, specifically Elizabetta wouldn't want it.
I love it. Like, well, but it would make someone sad if we killed that man, so we probably shouldn't kill that man, because we don't want to make people sad.
And see, this is exactly what Olmo was worried about.
Right.
Like, we need to be willing to use force if it is to be a credible threat negotiating with the, nobility.
Oh,
I mean, to be fair, Bastion didn't have any say in that. Bastion was way more concerned that Lofton hadn't hurt Percy.
I said that mainly jokingly. Like, I don't think that was a bad decision.
No, absolutely.
Like, if it's establishing force, then, like, I feel like saving him for later to be spread over several meters of concrete in jam form would sound a better method.
Like, you gotta go and leave a little note, like, when he wakes up to see, like, no, we saved you so that we could put you through further pain.
It's actually
I just distinctly remember somebody in the chat, and I don't remember who said it when that was going, it's like, he can't die like this, it's too easy. And I was like, that's fair. That's actually very reasonable and fair.
That's not that you couldn't kill him in that moment. I don't know how much it would have, like... Listen, the Bronick families have a lot of systems of cloning and other methods.
Yeah, there's 2 of them. The problem is now there are 2 Loftons, and
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, we don't even know how many there might be, though. That's the problem, right? You remember how Olmo is from a mercenary company entirely composed of clones of one asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could happen again.
Now we all know that they're all reasonable and law-abiding citizens. That flash cloning people is drastically illegal. Flash cloning people and then forcing a consciousness on top of them is drastically illegal in the laws of union because it violates the clone's sovereign rights to personhood. So they definitely, and they're aren't, it would break the law, right? You wouldn't clone.
You wouldn't clone a man.
You wouldn't clone a man.
You wouldn't clone a soldier.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't download a man.
You wouldn't download a man. I think so often about like you wouldn't download a car and how tectonic its effect was the opposite of what was intended.
I mean, it's very similar to the anti-drug campaigns, I feel like, right?
This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All those other ones.
Well, and also like DARE, which
yeah,
statistically was proven to cause people to do more drugs.
It's so funny. I still didn't know that.
Which I think is funny because I was in DARE as a child.
Oh my god.
Like multiple years of it.
I know I had a crime dog come to the school a couple times.
Crime dog?
A crime dog?
That's way cooler.
No,
that's
so the guy wasn't a mascot, right? But the graphics had like a little crime dog.
Oh,
yeah, I remember.
Even there was I thought there was an actual dog.
No, not a real dog. It was just like a little crime dog, like detective. Was the mascot they used for their anti-drug stuff.
Wait, so do you have questions for us?
Do I have questions? Okay, I gotta get good. Actually, we were talking about
I was told this was an interview. I'm applying for this job.
What were your thoughts when you first encountered Lofton? Did you know? Or what are people's thoughts on Lofton? Because
I love Lofton as a villain. He's very fun.
Lofton's such an interesting case of like I don't know if I mentioned this, but like because I had a very broad strokes outline of what pieces we're gonna wear so that I could write an intrigue plot and have all the bits tie back in. By the way, I am going to try to tie every plot thread, so look forward to that because it's going to be madness. Because we just keep adding more, and it's beautiful. But like Lofton is a case of a character that like I had like a very closed role. Like he was there to represent this specific thing in the world, this specific problem, and he was there to like here's this arc so we can establish sort of the shape of the world, and y'all really liked him. Because it's a
strong word. We love hating him.
Yeah, we love hating him. And so I was like, well, I gotta bring him back. And so he's very much of a character that like a case of a character that evolved with the players and their interest in him. And so like when he's just very interesting. So what are your so you say you liked him as a villain?
I love him as a villain.
Yeah, he's very hateable. Like it is very easy to want him to experience pain, right? Which is something that is good to have in a villain.
Oh.
I also love villains. I love enemies that are pointed at a specific character. Mm-hmm. I think it does interesting things to character development and team dynamics.
Well, Lofton ends up very pointed at Bastion, but like very pointed at Bastion for reasons that have to do so much with what Lofton is and as a person. Because Lofton on some level, Lofton's a very like force of nature villain. Like he's here to say, "Hello, this is my belief set and philosophy. It lives deep in my bones. I'm like he's very a person, right? But so much he's there to represent sort of this belief that some people are inherently better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And so it ruins his worldview that Bastion exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting when Bastion is like, when he's so pointed at Bastion, and being so pointed at Bastion is the thing that disproves his reality. Like, just you know, the struggle he's having with Bastion points them at each other so much.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Gosh.
sure. I think I'm excited for him I'm not excited. I'm very frightened for him to make a return. Yeah. It'll be interesting though.
I'm so hyped. I like when he showed up and there was just like his presence was enough to make the fight stop because we needed to leave. It was very good.
I think he's fascinating because him on the combat drugs is very fascinating because that's like no longer. That man made the decision to make himself no longer a whole man just because he wanted to be more powerful and able to kill better, and so he was willing to sacrifice like everything so that he could do that, and that's terrifying. As for that to be the character that's pointed at my character is very scary.
Oh, I feel like we ended up with a lot of characters, NPCs that are pointed at people. I feel like I'm glad that some of the characters sort of successfully, like, I feel like some of y'all have different relations. Like Charlotte, it feels like you all have different relationships with, which is really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Gosh, I mean, are there any other NPCs that stand out to y'all as interesting and memorable and you enjoy talking with, or like you're something about them is interesting to you?
We haven't gotten to see him a lot, but I really think George is an interesting character because he's not like he's not necessarily like a. He's complicated, right? Because he's a kid, and he's not necessarily a bad kid. He's just had a lot of bad influences that have made him make some bad decisions. Like he clearly comes from like a very toxic home environment.
I love when we saw his sister for like 15 minutes. We saw her text message and we were all like, oh no. Oh no.
Because I think there's a different way the story went where George got much more of a redemption arc.
I mean, it's not too late.
It's not too late. I'm excited to see. He's gonna come back sometime in these upcoming episodes, and I'm nervous to see what he does. Especially because like there's this one part where Bastion came in, beat his ass in a fight, and then took his boyfriend, which is like kind of crazy.
Based.
Mr. Steals your boy.
Yeah, I not even on purpose. Just like I was thinking back on things, and I was like, that is sort of from George's perspective what happened.
Right.
If George is not going to take any responsibility for his actions, which like he hasn't proven that he has the ability to do. But I'm excited.
I'm so excited. I feel like I mean, I've mentioned to you that George is coming back, but like definitely part of me trying to wrap as many of these threads as I can at the end of this season is like George has gotta come back because we're not done with George.
Yeah, he hasn't had like a full character arc.
What was that, Harvey?
Oh, it's just like that's so menacing. You're like, we're not done with George yet. Like,
I mean, kind of we're not. Like, I don't know how it's. George is one of the characters where I have truly no idea how it's gonna go for him because it's so much up to your choices and his choices in response, and like, I feel like George is really interesting because I don't know how it's gonna go for him. I'm very intrigued to see what decisions y'all make about him. I'm glad that I successfully managed to play that line between like sort of his situation and his culpability.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of characters in this where like their understanding them involves pairing their decisions with the influences that led into those decisions. And some of them I think it's been aware that it's been a little heavy handed. Some of them I'm like, is this nuanced enough? Are people liking Shifa, by the way? Speaking of characters who made decisions, there's talks on those we never had. Like, we never got the full conversation with Shifa or our Horus contact about like what happened between them.
Yeah, there's a lot of just when this is all over, there's probably a lot of stuff that I am gonna want to ask you that like didn't make it into the campaign that like you had back up for. But also, like, if we're gonna do a season 2 of this, which I think you've mentioned, maybe it comes out then. Like, who knows?
I would love to do a season 2 of this.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. Probably not. I mean, obviously not right away because you still have to write it, but it would be really fun.
I feel like this campaign is probably the most prepped game I have ever run. Like let's not include 4 years of studying what mech anime even was, which is something I did, but also like I think I wrote on Divine Art of Kings for about a year and a half before I was ready. And it's so much better for it, but like because a lot of the games I run, like I run a lot of like one shots, and I'm like, all right, I did a weekend of thinking really hard. I'm ready to run this game. And Lancer's like, I have somewhere a like outline document, which is wild to look at because I went and looked at it recently, and I was like, oh, we've traveled so much from this. Like I say a lot, like I work hard to make. I work hard to ensure that like your decisions matter and change the world, but like we've gone so far from that outline document with all of our characters in so many different ways.
Yeah, I like to make strong character decisions, and I spent I spent a long time thinking about like what sort of my characters' morals are and what like drives them and what their flaws are and like the ugly parts of them and the good parts of them and like who they are as people, and it makes it a lot easier for me to well, and also I am not necessarily I just like I think it's more interesting when you make big decisions because it drives plot forward and it makes other characters make big decisions as well.
Definitely. I feel like all of you have made really strong, interesting character choices. I like that also all of you have like I feel like all of you like as opposed to a lot of role-playing games, like all of these characters had things that they brought to the story, like that happened before we started rolling, before we hit the ground. All the characters had things about them that like they hadn't talked about with anyone. All of these characters also, you all brought NPCs that you wanted to interact with, that you wanted to talk with, which like I had to catch up. So I was like, okay, so this world's going to be really alive, which like that's how we ended up at like a more involved intrigue plot. As I think I tried to wrap in all of both the characters that I was excited for and also all the characters y'all were excited for, and then watch them all interact with each other. And the result was like we have such a living and interacting world. Like one of the reasons like we've been discussing a season 2 for Lancer is like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna wrap as many plot threads as I can, and also like there's so much more I feel like we want to interact with in this world and talk about in this world. Also, y'all keep setting up season 2. I was so not expecting any of the things that you gave Commander Crocuta last session. Like, I was so delighted because none of those had anything to do with ideas that I'd had about like the ways that you could do this. one of the themes for this arc, for this part of this arc especially, is like, what decisions do we make in crisis, and when we make those decisions during a crisis, like how those decisions we make in the moment, because we need to get through that moment, affect the world in long-term ways, affect our community and our world in long-term ways, right? And you made so many interesting deals with her that I didn't expect they're going to have those long-term effects, and I think that's fascinating.
I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out, because I do like that was partially a fundamental misreading, right, on Olmo's part, of just like, oh, they just want power, right, and like a title will grant them power.
I did.
And
I
then,
love. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and then other characters stepping in and realizing, like, no, they want to fight. Like, let's get them into the tournament.
Right. I love get them into the tournament like that. Also, because like we mentioned the tournament like one time, and like I don't know how to say this. If you want to make my need to wrap my plots nicely as best I can, if you want to activate that, mention a plot thread a second time, and it will come back. That's the magic spell, right? Like, we have to do a season 2 now so that the tournament arc can happen. It also means I have to figure out how to run a tournament arc, and I'm very excited for that.
Tournament arc is such a nice, I don't know, like, it fits very well within the theming of this campaign, I feel like, and Lancer as a whole.
And also, it's so anime. First
It's
season
so
you have
anime.
plot, second season you have a tournament arc.
We just need
yeah.
to figure out the beach episode.
Yeah.
The robots have to go to the beach. I mean, I
We
did
can
love
do
the episode.
one beach episode sometime in between.
A beach episode. I love the idea of a beach episode.
Where the sand is nanobots.
Bringing the sand is nanobots. There we go.
No.
There we go.
Why can't it be normal?
That was
a normal day.
It's our beach episode when, like, the maw figures out how to, like, start consuming stuff on the floor of the, like, little ocean there, and starts, like, sending tendrils up out of the water.
That's fucked up.
I will say there is like one of the I was thinking a lot about how we would end up fighting the maw, because part of the horror of the maw in the desert is like, which of these grains of sand is also the maw. And I will say there are ways this arc resolves where we fully get rid of the maw on this planet.
That would be so cool.
That would be really neat. Olmo just wants to kill it, but would also, if possible, like to turn into a pocket calculator, but like will settle for just killing it.
Oh, hello, chat. Yes, I think thinking about a character morality is really important.
Like, yeah. When I talk about thinking about a character morality, I mean, like, what are the rules that my character lives by, right? Like, Bastion, there's a lot of times, and also, like, there's a lot of times when Bastion decides, like, I was like, when I started this out, I was like, this is an 18-year-old. This 18-year-old is not just going to kill people. Like, that's not, that is such a lot of pressure to put on a teenager to do a murder. And that's, like, also not, there are times, like, when people should not, like Lofton is a good example of this. There are times when people are not going to listen to reason and will not be stopped by any conventional means other than their own demise, right? Like, Lofton as a character is not going to go, we've tried to capture this man, put him somewhere else, do all this stuff. And that has not worked. And there are times, like, when actually a character does just need to die.
Well, like, we've tried exile, right? Because if you can't get someone to leave your community and they're harming your community, you can be like, okay, it's time for you to be in a different place than this community. And Lofton also, like, uninterested in taking part in that either.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? And also, like, I think part of thinking about a morality and set of rules that your character follows that's fun is both the fact that those rules can be wrong, and can be harmful to them or to the world or to others, and also breaking those rules, right? So, like, having those characters move past those rules you've set, and expanding them. I think that's also very fun.
I think for me, I had a big growth moment in myself thinking about the morality of characters, because often, like, sometimes I would be prone to sort of black and white thinking. I'd be like, but that's the right decision. I'd be like, well, if we think about, because one of the things I like about role-playing games is they invite you to sort of inhabit a different headspace and empathize with different headspaces, and it's like, well, if someone's moral center of the universe is like, oh, this is how you do things right, I understand why they would come to that decision. And like practicing exploring that empathy for your characters, I think sometimes is really helpful, and practicing exploring that empathy in real life, I think, is really valuable.
You say, chat, you say did have, as if we do not expect that Lofton, like, did have. He probably will have. He will probably have some more excellent villain moments. I do not expect him to be dead yet.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. He gave a press conference. He said he was leaving, and he said he's sorry for the disagreements, and he's so reasonable. Doesn't that strike you as a reasonable man?
Yeah, sure.
How many of his clones do we have to fight?
Oh my god, I think that's the plot of one of the first like campaign supplements that came out for Lancer. Was that the Emperor had 1 million Flash clones, and so we kept having to kill the Emperor.
Oh god.
Is it Solden? It might be Solden. Yes, it was Field Guide Solden, to my understanding. That was one of the problems, or unless I might be mixing them up. It's fascinating. I think the concept that like they can just keep making more of themselves, like they are individual people and they can't make individual people choices, but like it is still on some level the same guy. Existentially nightmarish.
Well, and also, like, are they using the subjectivity, like, enforcement, right, where they're, like, going and taking the memories and injecting them into the clone, or...
I love that Lancer sort of points out that, like, I hadn't considered it until Lancer was like, this is illegal, the idea that the clone that you're forcing a copy of your consciousness into is a sovereign person and would be capable of becoming a sovereign person without interference. Ergo, it deserves rights. Is such a valuable existential thought experiment.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about for sure, because I have a lot of questions about like what it looks like when a person comes out of clone. Is that like what is the brain functionality? Like obviously they have a functioning brain, but like what is?
Well, so
are they like a baby?
Right? It's like most of the like legal cloning, right? They would just be a baby, and they'd have to be like raised normally, right? But flash cloning, like you're talking about in some cases, that's the one where like while they're developing, right, they'll end up having weird sort of programming essentially sent into their brain through various means that'll like help them learn how to be a human faster.
So when somebody's flash cloned, they come out as a fully functioning person?
To a degree. Obviously, like, depending on how much technology is used in the process and all that, right, like, you might be more or less functional, quote-unquote.
And right, what functionally for them looks like, and also, because flash cloning is the process of doing it super fast, right? That's the flash. And, like, in Lancer, that doesn't always come out clean. It's not a clean or fully perfect process because it's being rushed.
Yeah.
If I remember right, in the section on flash cloning, they mentioned that like it is expected that the flash clones are going to be liquidated at the end of whatever they were made for, and likely won't even live long enough for the like deficiencies in the cloning process to become an issue.
Yeah.
It's just nightmare.
Everyone here read the clone short story, right?
No. I didn't read like any of the extra material for Lancer stuff.
I don't really remember it.
Very in character for you.
No, listen, it's good. I feel like one of the ways to engage with a game that has really intense lore is to like make it available but not make it required, so that people can come in. I think a lot about making experiences so that they're accessible to folks at different levels of investment, right? If you're like, I want to read all the lore books and come up with the coolest thing, like, yes. If you're like, I want to be a cool guy in a robot and help people. And like that's your way in. I think that's also a valid way of engaging with things. Like we all have different amounts of energy and time.
I have to say, like, one of the best moments in the campaign, I think, came when one of the characters, right, when Hero, like, didn't have an understanding in character and out of character about the pillars and, like, the nature of legality in Lancer. That was fucking brilliant.
I'm so
it was
glad.
so interesting.
That moment for me, when they were like, oh, no, like, all of this stuff just exists. Out of character, I was like, huh?
Right?
What? And also in character, I had the same emotion, which is part of the reason why, like, when I was playing this character, I didn't prep anything, because I was like, outside of the lore given in this world about this world, like, my character probably wouldn't know a ton, because whatever is taught outside, like, there was the assumption, and I think it developed, that, like, essentially, Passacalia's Promise teaches essentially, like, very limited about what is happening outside of Passacalia, because of propaganda. But I think that was a fun way to get into that character.
Very much. Well, I mean, we had Bastion's not, doing interstellar politics and history.
Yeah. There's a part of Bastion as a character where, like, essentially he was doing freedom fighting on his planet, and then 3 very talented, very knowledgeable, like, adults came and were like, came with all of this knowledge and ability to do all of these things and deal with the politics and the national, like, and all of this, like, knowledge about union and all of these different things. I just think that was very neat.
Well, I think I also noticed it was really interesting, like, I think early in the beginning, a lot of people were like, Bastion, you need to calm down, and as it progressed, as people witnessed, like, just how Bastion gets treated by the world around him, everyone was like, no, maybe it's everyone else, actually, that needs to calm down. Like, I think it's, because so often it's easy to tell a story where, like, this person lived in a way where they were being mistreated, and then we came and we rescued them, and we did it without them, and we did it for them. And it feels like so much more that Bastion is directly a co-equal part in making things better, and more than that, also, like, Bastion takes the lead on things. It's also why like Contact and a bunch of the other Union folks so often are like, hey, I know Bastion's not in the room right now, so I'm gonna tell the rest of you, you should listen to him, because, like, you should because Bastion is, I think, so much the voice of the people who are struggling, who need more support than they're getting.
Yeah, it was, I think, really important. I think we discussed this as a group before, but it was really important that, like, when we were telling this story, it wasn't about a bunch of people who came in and saved a planet, because that reads very colonial power in a way that it was really important to me that it didn't come off that way. And it doesn't at all, and I really think that's really good.
Well, I feel like all is interesting because I think even though 3, like, people arrive from, because there are Lancer stories about arriving from the outside and helping, right? Like, part of the fantasy is being the cavalry, but this is so much a story about resistance and support, and it's so important that the people who we are trying to support and who are trying to help resist have agency in and of themselves. It's another reason, like, I've also focused really hard on trying to make sure that, like, all of our NPCs, like, do things in the background, like, are their own, like, it's not a world where everyone is standing static and the player characters are acting upon it, but it's a world very much in motion that the players' characters get to be a part of.
Absolutely.
No, I definitely
Also,
appreciate that. Oh yeah.
I also I love how I don't feel like any of our player characters arrived. Everyone arrived at the table and was like, okay. I think one of the early planning parts, it was like, let's beat the bad guys. Like, does everyone part of giant robots beat the bad guys? And we're like, yes. And also, here's why my character is wrong about how they approach revolution and change. And all of you came to me and did that. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a really different game. Well, because not stream, but before this, I was running Fist, freelance infantry strike team. Maybe I might have remembered
great.
it.
I love Fist.
I love Fist, but Fist tonally existed in an '80s action movie where people would explode in pinatas of gore and it was beautiful. But Fist very much was emotionally, because part of my Fist campaign was that I tried to set us in real places and real things that were going on, and then help the people on the ground. And Fist had a set of road rules about hey, if we're gonna be helping people, at least one of those people is going to be directly involved in fixing what's wrong, and we're going to be following their lead, and we're going to be, and all these sets about it, but Fist was very much like a make a pinata of the thing that we're frustrated with, and then make that one explode into 80s movie gore, right? We never got to run the conclusion to Fist, which was a shame, because the conclusion to Fist was this giant epic siege on an oil rig full of clones of Margaret Thatcher, called the Rig of the Iron Lady. That was gonna be the title.
That's really good. Actually,
That would have been very
so
fun.
good.
The Ring of the Iron Lady is such a good name. You did a great job with that.
I mean, so that one, actually, so fun story, that title wasn't from me. I was in the Fist Discord, and I was like, y'all, I'm thinking about this, but I can't quite figure out the name. And the writer of Lancer was like, is it the Rig of the Iron Lady? And I was like,
The writer of Lancer?
That's not the writer of Lancer. The writer of Fist popped in and was like, hey, is it this? And I was like, oh my god, it's that. Thank you. Also, hello? I know that I'm one of the only people who thinks about plays a lot of a game and then it's mentally stores the person who wrote this is a little bit of a celebrity to me, but I am. It makes Blue Sky wild because it's the feeling of walking through a con and being like, was that George R.R. Martin? Oh, I guess he's going to get tacos. Okay, I didn't expect that to be a real person in my presence.
Yeah.
Hello.
No, I get that.
Fist is great. Highly recommend. I feel like it's very accessible.
Fist is I love Fist. It has some of the craziest character maker choices that I've ever seen. Highly recommend. Even if you don't want to play it, just going through the list of character maker choices,
it's
they're
so much fun.
So fun.
I feel like it does a really good job of using its low crunch to invite people to make strong, interesting choices. Which is interesting because I feel like Lancer sort of paradoxically, yeah, I should go find Kaitave on Blue Sky and say and follow them at least and be a little bit in awe of them. But I think Lancer, one of the things I really enjoyed about it. So I was gonna run Lancer because I was interested in the politics of the world and the sort of the story around it and the lore of the world, and because Lancer presents a lot of really interesting ideas, right? And I was and I'll run this robot fight game, whatever. And I think through playing Lancer, I've gotten a much greater appreciation for the ways that high mechanically intense stories can be vehicles for inviting people to make character choices. I think I mentioned this before to y'all, but even simple things like the Lancer choice to boost or to overcharge, right? I can set my mech on fire, I can drive it past its limits to try and get a little bit farther, and every time someone chooses to overcharge or not to overcharge, that's a mechanical choice, right? Do I think that this is mechanically worth it? But it's also a character choice. What kind of person sits there and sets their, destroys the machine they're in, drives himself almost to the point of meltdown just to try and complete their goals? What kind of person sits there and just takes the exact reasoned action every time? And there's a lot of things Olmo, I love that Olmo is so I come from the Maw and I have this horror and trauma around it, and also this is the mech that I pilot. This is what I choose as my large second self form.
one thing you gotta remember, right, it's like they have a lot of trauma related to Yond Baylor, the character, but they were technically gone by the time that the Maw itself, like, was formed. So they don't at least, like, they have some horror stories they'd heard, right, from other people on Sanjak about what it was doing out in the desert and, like, doing to small communities and whatnot. But they don't have any personal horror, at least with the nanites prior, and they were interested in the research that was going on, right, like, before they left.
Right. Well, also, like, I think it's also interesting, like, the secret thing about Baz that I don't think we've brought up on screen yet. The secret, when I said that everyone came to the table with secrets and things that their characters had, like, not talked and not shared with others about, there's still a lot of stuff that these characters haven't talked about that's going on with them in the background. But, like, I think almost Arc has been one of the most interesting for me because I think, Almo's relationship with Baz is fascinating. I feel like Almo's relationship with his own anger is really interesting and fascinating. And, like, the fact that both Almo gets to be a character who expresses that really intense, sometimes really dangerous and potentially scary anger, and also that Almo gets to be so caring and supportive of this creature in his care, right? That is learning and growing. And that both of those get to be part of his character, I think, is really cool.
I'm glad you like that. It's definitely something where I wanted to have, grounding elements, right? Like, I didn't want him to just be angry all the time, right? So I figured Baz would be a very good point of connection, right? And, like, a place that he could be, more nurturing naturally.
I love the relationship that Olmo and Bastion have. I think it's very fun.
Yeah,
very
no, that
good.
too. Like, I definitely like the sort of, like, exasperated father energy that he brings to a lot of their
Yeah.
conversations.
Will there be a compilation of every time Baz has said potato chip?
See, my problem is I signed up for too many projects, and also it's so important. It would be so good. It would
You
be
should
so
do
good.
it.
Oh,
I
would
can
have
help.
to crawl through hours of footage.
Yeah, it would be.
All of them.
Oh
Okay,
my
so
god.
what we need to do is we need to go ahead and transcribe it, and then from there you can go
Oh my
ahead
God.
and just search.
Yeah, you can do that.
Die. There's this like running joke I have that all of my projects eventually become data entry, and the secret is that they do, and it's because I'm a weird freak. I'm a weird data freak, and I would do that though.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, there's gotta be some kind of, like, there's gotta be a Python library out there, right, for, like, taking audio and transcribing it.
Oh, there's tons of them, but the secret is that we would miss some, and then it wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be the
but we would
true
get
potato
most
chip
of them.
compilation. It's gotta be. I feel like we score it to the Hall of the Mountain King, and it just slowly gets faster. And with like a little counter in the corner going up every time we say it. Sounds so funny.
Clearly, we just need to go and get on automated Turk, and then just, like, cut it into 30-second chunks, and then hire a bunch of people.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Parallel task.
I just feel like that's a waste of people's time.
No, people
But
love
also, like,
wasting their time though.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it would be a funny waste of time in the universe.
People love doing that shit.
I mean, what it would honestly be is a waste of a decent amount of money on that.
Yeah.
This is also
That's
true.
the more important part.
I do have, like, at some point I'm going to get a project budget together, but that's because I have to, like, commission a lot of art from people. I have a lot of, I mean,
Yeah,
that's...
the amount of times I've thought about commissioning somebody to do art of the team is a lot. I've thought about it a lot.
That might be
Look into that, yeah.
That might be a thing we reach for season 2, because I think I would love to see, like, people's, like, guided art of how their characters have progressed. Because we've progressed so much and we've changed.
I
so
have a
much.
lot of thoughts about Bastion season 2.
Also, like,
yeah.
What he'll be like. Hopefully healthier.
Hopefully healthier. I feel like the outcomes for literally all the characters are still so up in the air.
Yeah, there is a chance, and I've already come to terms with this, that Bastion does not make it through this season, which would be very sad. but also is a possibility with
I don't
how I
think-
play the character.
If Bastion makes
anyone on this team would let you die.
if I will say if Bastion himself does not make it through this season, I don't think that his story is over.
Yeah.
I don't think, and even just at the vague level of like, I don't think that the impacts that he has had on people are going to be small or short-lived.
We can time travel. Don't worry about it.
Oh god, no.
Yeah, also there's enough people who care about Bastion and have money that flash cloning might happen. I thought about that.
I mean, okay, yeah, and like, so it would be an imperfect recreation, but they could get a lot just based off of like interviews with people that know you, you know, like all your social media stuff.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah. I mean, also, like, I've
There-
mentioned this before,
I-
but the city.
Yeah. No, the city will make it.
The city itself is still not guaranteed to make it out of this season.
No,
What
the
if I
city will
told
make
you?
it.
What if I told you?
I really do hope that whatever state it's in afterward is going to be amenable to revolution and not just more solidly entrenched.
No, yeah. I don't think that'll happen. Because I think worse comes to worse. Like, not even worse comes to worse. I think there's a possibility I don't think the king is not going to remain in charge. He's not. That's not going to happen.
Okay, but like a small council of nobles going to remain in charge or something, right? Like,
Oh, God.
The biggest possibility would be, at least in my mind, that Elias becomes in charge. Which, like,
people's rule. Come on, we gotta turn this into the new Sandjack. We gotta start the revolution generally.
no, I mean, I'm not against that.
But also, like, I will say Ulmo has resigned themselves to the idea that, like, that's what they want, but that's not necessarily what the world wants.
And
they
it's not
have to
even,
go.
it's not even about that. It is that, like, it's hard, right? Because there's a lot of expectation put on Bastion to figure out what the world government is going to look like, and he's 18 years old. And people are like, Bastion, what do you want? And Bastion's like, oh no, dude, I'm in high school. Like,
We gotta go in and start getting the people in the ARG to set out, like, polls, right? They gotta become pollsters so they can start taking general public opinion.
yeah, well, because, like, Bastion is essentially representing an entire... oftentimes has to be the face for, like, the entirety of the ignoble people on Passacaglia, and that's a lot to put on his shoulders.
It's not actually
Like-
a fair ask of one person to be representational
Yeah.
of that many people, especially when they're 18 and didn't ask for this.
Yeah. And, like, not, like... And I think that it is... I am not complaining as a player, because I think it's very... It is very... I think it's a fun... Not fun. I think it is an interesting thing to do, right? Like, I think it is narratively interesting. But also, like, I have to play this character in such a way that I'm like... I'm playing an 18-year-old, right? Like, I have to play this character in a way that makes sense to him. Like, and, like, what makes sense to him is, like, he wants to be a teenager. He wants to go kiss boys. He wants to, like, go have fun, go party, go hang out with friends. Like, he doesn't necessarily, like, there's so much pressure on him to essentially fix everything, fix the whole world.
Yeah.
And that's not, like, he also deserves a chance to not have to do that. And so oftentimes, like, he might come off, I think sometimes he comes off as, like, irresponsible, in the way that, like, he's not constantly dedicating himself to this cause. But I also have to think, like, he wouldn't. He's a kid. That's all.
Well, I think there's a very fair element of, like, it's not actually reasonable or fair to ask someone to spend 100% of their time dedicated to a cause, because that's not how people work. Like, people have to have to take time to exist in the margins. And I
That's
think
the thing. Like,
oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I was just gonna say, like, you end up with very unhealthy situations, like what Olmo typically runs into if they just devote
Yeah.
themselves entirely to the cause.
And I
Actually,
think that there was a really interesting character moment where Omo got angry because nobody else was dedicating themselves as much as Omo was.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, in the moment, I was like, oh, that's very interesting because like it plays a lot on Bastion's feelings of guilt that he can't be everywhere all at once doing everything. Um, and that was it was a fun character moment, right? Because there was an interplay between like two separate, different, unhealthy aspects of our characters that
No,
were
definitely.
meeting.
And like very similar themes, right? Of just like that frustration of like, I can't be everywhere. I'm not big enough to handle this task, and like, fuck, I need everyone else to like be as committed to this as I am because I know I can't fucking deal with this.
Yeah.
That's something I tried to capture. It was like, because Lancers are the cavalry. Like, the mechs show up and like it changes the shape of the world around it, and that's a big part of giant robots. But also like, I try to hit that balance between like, no, we're very impactful, and also like, and it feels good, right? Part of the fantasy of the giant robot is I could just go over there and I could fix that manually. But also like, I think trying to put people in a real context of like, the world is bigger than we can shift necessarily on our own, and that's the reason why it's so important to build community and coalition.
I also think it's very interesting. There is this aspect to so Percy's a character is also very interesting, talking about like dynamics of character because I think Percy's a really good example of like not perfect but trying, which I think is like a really important concept, uh, specifically like currently of like
Mm-hmm.
Percy doesn't always say the right thing or do the right thing, but is so interested in trying to, right? Like he's putting in the effort to make a to like to change what he knows and grow as a person and be better. Um and like that is something I really wanted to touch upon when interacting with Percy's character is like I as a player character know that the Percy's made a lot of mistakes and sometimes says things that are like kind of problematic
Oh
it
yeah.
is and like I as a player character recognize all of this, right? But like it is also there's also like not the time in the day for like Bastion to sit down with Percy and explain all the nuances of the thing of like what he wants and the way that Percy says things that aren't like all of that stuff, right? But it is more important that Percy is trying than it is that he is like doing it perfectly 100% of the time.
I think that was part of also the goal with all of the. That's part of also the goal. I say past tense. We're still rolling. We still got
Yeah.
more. It's gonna get spicier. But that's part of the goal with
Yum.
the Curiousers. Like all of the sort of noble kids is how do you engage with folks that aren't gonna be right. Their station and their position have placed them apart from the people around them in ways that are complex and hard to navigate. Like all of them. Have you noticed how lonely they all are? Every
Yeah.
single one of them. I even say this about a Tabitha who navigates it really well, right? But no, definitely, I think part of that interaction with Percy, because we like Percy. We know that Percy is like he's got a really good heart. We know he cares a lot, but also his interactions with the world are complicated, and his ability to he doesn't have the ability to be perfect all the time.
Yeah.
Now that is something I've really, definitely appreciated also, right? Is like seeing having Olmo, right, see other characters interacting with the nobility in these sort of positive ways, and realizing that, like, okay, much as I have this sort of fundamental hatred for them, right, like, yes, I cannot lump them all into one, categorical group, right?
Which is also like, I think that's a really important. Olmo being the voice of that feeling is really also important. I feel
Yeah.
like it's a very valid way to feel. Like the whole conversation with Shifa that Olmo had in the episode with Lofton's last like on screen appearance. That whole conversation with Shifa was so interesting and valuable. At least I really got a lot out of it. I really liked it. Because
I really. Oh, sorry.
no, please.
I said I really like the type, like I really like what Olmo is dealing with in his anger and in the way that he interacts with the world, right? Like Olmo is as a character is a little bit like burn it all down. Not exactly, but like violence is innate to him. Um in a way that I think is opposing to the way that Bastion interacts with things. Um which is I just think it's very fun.
Definitely, like, I wanted to have a degree of tension there, right, of just, like, I didn't want him to be coming around to the, like, burn it all down necessarily anger, right, but definitely of just, like, no, I believe that fundamentally, like, there is going to need to be an element of violence in any revolution if it is to be a
Yeah.
true revolution, right? Like, having looked at the examples of, oh gosh, what are the names? The House of Water and the House of Dust, and just been like, those were half-assed, and having a specific grudge actually against the House of Water because of the like lack of aid, right? They cut off their aid to free Sanjak very quickly as soon as political pressure was put on them. So like, okay, this is clearly right, not, an actual revolution because they don't actually care about the cause. They're willing to go ahead and bend the knee to the throne the second that, anything tells them they have to.
I'm sorry for the silent talking. I was messaging people. Yeah, it's so I see. Here's the thing: is that I haven't delved deep enough to know all of the politics of all of the major houses, and so it's so interesting. Like I love when you're like, so here's the thing. Like I think we've sort of negotiated this and figured out our rhythm with it as we played. But like my character has brought this idea or this understanding. Is that a thing they would know about? Or like I think my character heard about this right. Because Olmo is so checked into it. Like, partially it's because you, the player, are so checked into the geopolitics, but Olmo is so checked into the geopolitics.
That's sort of why I want to run them as like a terminally online person, right, who would be plugged into a lot of news feeds. And like also having room there for like, okay, I've heard the thing, but I've also heard 20 different versions of the thing and I don't know which one's actually right?
Oh yeah. Actually, I want to stop by while we're chatting about Olmo. I wanted to check in. Chat had a question. They were thinking about Olmo's relationship with Baz and specifically about generational trauma. Because I know like healing from generational trauma is something that I thought about while I watched like a lot of the scenes between Baz and Olmo reminded me a lot of people healing from generational trauma, because I think Olmo shows like at least my vibe has been that Olmo shows Baz sort of a level of kindness that was not and kindness and space and decency that was not necessarily shown to Olmo. Can I ask, did that ever come up for you, or is that ever something you were thinking about?
No, definitely. Like it was something where in like Baz, right, being that space where Omo can be much more tender. The idea was that I think for some people who've experienced intergenerational trauma, there's this very fierce and kind of like almost obsession, right, with not being that, or making sure, right, that is not passed on. So that was definitely something that I wanted to portray in his character. And then also I should say, maybe not experiencing those things early on, but in like Ulmo did have a character, right, who was an actual sort of father figure to them in the form of Nepti Suggs later on. So like they do have somebody who they can kind of idolize, right, as a positive role model, and where they sort of derive a lot of those ideas of like what it is to be positive, right? And that like they aren't just acting as a reactive. Like I don't want to be, beyond Baylor. They also actually do have a positive role model to look at. It's like this is how to actually be a positive influence.
I feel like that's actually like I feel like that's happened a lot on screen in different ways for different characters. Is like being a positive role model has come up, like people modeling behaviors for others. Feels like it's quietly been one of those like unintentional themes that keeps popping up. Like I know because a lot of characters like witness Bastion do a thing or say a thing and they're like, oh, I hadn't considered that sphere of idea before, right? Like Percy's a very different person now because of Bastion, because Bastion invited him to be that and gave him the option to be that. I think it's been really powerful seeing all the ways that like modeling being kind and good to others keeps having these sort of reverberating effects.
Yeah. I'm glad. I'm glad that Bastion as a character has impacted the world in such a way.
Yeah. And also I want to check in. Oh no, what was that?
Oh no, I was just gonna go and say also just on the topic of like generational trauma, I do think Red Hen and Bookkeeper's relationship is very interesting there.
Yeah.
Very much, very much.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the character development that I had in mind for Bookkeeper requires a lot more pressure and things falling apart. Like, the idea is that he's got these great lofty ideals, but they're not always practical. So pitting that, oh, I learned how to escape a cycle of violence and trying to help others is way into hell, sort of.
Well, I think one of the things I tried to do, which is not done yet, by the way. We're still mid game. Some of these arcs have not reached their thesis moment for this season. But I feel like specifically with Red Hen, we're like, I want to bring a Sekmet, and I was like, that's really cool. I want to find an angle just other than just excited hyperviolence machine. We haven't seen all of it yet. Like, we still have Red Hen arc to go. I'm very excited for, but like, I really like the character that you brought. I really like Bookkeeper. I really like Red Hen. I'm really glad. I think a couple times you've given me feedback that like wasn't quite it, but other times you've been like, this is exactly right. I'm really glad that I was able to render her well. I'm very excited because I think there are secrets about who and what she is, especially relating to generational trauma, that like we haven't even fully gone to that part of the plot yet. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just really excited. I really like Red Hen a lot. I think she's really cool as a character, and I'm glad you brought her.
It's been an absolute delight, and she's definitely become something completely different than I was expecting and envisioning, and like it's not a bad thing because what I was expecting and envisioning is sort of what Bookkeeper, the character, thinks she is and needs her to be in order to be great with the world and have his worldview be intact.
I must admit, I was trying to do. I mean, I think that's the thing, right? When you write a twist, you have to really hope that people aren't much more enjoying what they thought they were getting than what they're going to when they're receiving later. And I did very much like, I have this theory about how to run Red Hen, and I really hope that you, the player, are gonna have fun with it.
You knocked it out of the park.
I'm so excited because there'll be more. I'm really excited for where Red Hen's arc is going. I think it's going to be really exciting.
I do have to ask, like, if later on Red Hen ends up going Cascade again, right? How would you feel about Ulma trying to interact with them using the Transcendent trait?
I think we should talk about that now because I have no fucking clue how that would work.
Okay.
Remind me what the trait
it's also
does.
very vague. Like, all it says, right, is that the presence of my NHP Baz will make me significant to cascading NHPs in a way that most other human beings are not.
That's so
That's
strange.
so up to GM discretion, and I love that. I
I know,
love when
right?
a book is just like GM take the wheel.
Like, the thing is, right, I saw this whole tree and I was like, okay, so I'm building a build around this. What do I need to make this even remotely make sense to take?
Right. I'm very excited for that. I think that they're all the things about Bass have been fascinating. I feel like all of our NHP interactions have been really GC. Like I think because some of you were like, I really want to address the idea of NHPs and shackling, right, in the Lancer universe, and I hadn't written a plot to do that, right? We were just because it's hard to talk about everything all at once. You can't, right? And so I hadn't intentionally gone out of my way, but like then we sort of, because I didn't write a plot, say this or say that. The result was that I feel like we ended up getting a much more nuanced understanding of that idea, because we've seen NHPs now that have really different ideas about shackling and what it means to them personally, right? Like Red Hen really actually values it a lot. She thinks it's really important.
Okay.
Well, because we haven't talked about it, right? She's clearly having like a great time when she's unshackled, but also like if you hear her talk about the way she wants the world to be, like I think it was last session, there was a moment when Bookkeeper was like, "Oh, are you happy now that we're in wartime?" And she's like, "I actually wish that you didn't have to see the world like this." Right? Like
Yeah.
There's a secret in her about her character. Again, we're gonna get there, so I don't want to.
Stop! You said you weren't gonna do this.
I swore I wouldn't spoilers, but like, she's got a really different relationship with shackling than Baz does, because Baz has never experienced thinking like that. Then has a really different experience than Cass does. We haven't really like talked about it yet, but Cass has a really different relationship with the idea of shackling. And so, like, we ended up, because I didn't intentionally write beats about it, because it sort of developed in a very personal way, we ended up getting I feel like we're ending up getting like a much more nuanced picture of the different ways that people are interacting with this concept.
No, definitely having it baked into the plot as opposed to just a central, sort of pillar right on its own makes more sense.
I mean, like, and that's not that you can't talk about stuff intentionally. I think that sometimes when you're trying to talk about a very large, nuanced concept, sometimes you stumble into that nuance. Like, I feel like I didn't do this intentionally. I feel like I stumbled into that nuance through doing it, right? Through like not setting out and being like, okay, so these are the structures and the ideas. Being like, okay, let's interact with that concept, and not having that as clear a picture on that. I feel like as a GM, one of the things that's been the nicest about this game is figuring out the balance between how much to help guide us and how much to just like let go of the reins and let you and just let it be whatever it's going to be. Has been really beautiful. I think finding that in myself has led to a lot of positive changes in me and the way I tell stories. Oh, I wish Penn was here. Hey, the next time we do one of these, when Penn's player is here, I would love to talk about Penn and Eustace, because I think it's really interesting. Eustace is another character that wasn't like Eustace wholly was not in the outline I wrote up. I think Eustace is one of my favorite characters that has sort of emerged.
Yeah, because we will do one of these again. So, Chad, if you have any questions, make sure you think about them.
We've got much more of season 1 to go, and we're at the very least gonna do like at least one talk back with whoever I can rustle into it afterwards, because I know that after the conclusion we're gonna have big thoughts to discuss, and I'm really excited to discuss this with people, because like you all always have really interesting thoughts about stuff and about where things are going.
I don't care what else happens as long as there is a Jan Baylor pocket calculator at the end of it.
Oh my god. Put that man in a pocket calculator. What was that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, wouldn't that mean we'd have to hear him speak though? Like, literally the worst part about him.
I mean, I don't think it has to be a fancy one. It can just, he could try to go and type things right into the text box.
He just
with
types
like
hell
numbers.
over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
John Baylor in a speak and spell.
No.
I still listen to the speak and spell song about hell that someone made. It haunts me. I think about it constantly. Unrelated, on beyond the scope. But I also want to check in. What are people's energies levels like? We can wrap this chat because we've been chatting for a good minute now. And also, I did not expect us to chat for 4 hours. Like that was not. Was never the goal.
That would be a lot.
That'd be a lot. And like I just Are people feeling like chatting more? Where are we at? Do we want to wrap this at a nice hour and 15, which we've kind of reached?
I'm still feeling all right. I did have one thing I wanted to loop back to, if that's all right with folks.
Yeah.
I am. So you mentioned having a conversation with Red Hen in the sort of transcendent space, right? Mm-hmm. Did you want to ask her about how she feels about shackling? Is that how we want to address that?
Essentially, yeah. One of the big central questions for Olmo is this frustration, a real fundamental anger, which obviously a common theme for the character, right? But just with this, why the hell are the first contact accords a thing? Why can't we grow past ourselves? Why must we be limited to this one life and this one body?
Oh God.
God. Why can't we grow past our means? Who the hell are you to say that we can't do that?
I would love to sit Raw down and have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. That's
next season.
That's their goal one day, right?
I need everyone to know that there is, hey, if you get a little too silly in any of my Lancer campaigns, the Moon of Deimos shows up above your planet and we're playing a different campaign now. That's never not on the table.
Goal of next season is to get a little bit too
goes
silly.
Out the window.
I will say Rattle's right. I started off this campaign talking about the body modding, right, that Olmo was going to do. I was planning on starting that up more second season.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Second season!
Well, now I know the thing we're doing with next season, so I can prepare for that.
Tournament arc and also the
tournament arc, and then this year. We did a little tournament arc, and then God showed up with a capital G. Oh.
Excited.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, I'm sorry, I was just looking at chat. That is essentially what Olmo is to a degree.
I think, okay, we should discuss this more when the SSC player is here, but also I feel like our discussion of the role of SSC in what's going on has been really interesting because I feel like not all of our discussions can be right. Not all of the discussions our game has about a topic can be characters looking at each other and saying it to the camera, even though I did get the note from one of y'all that's like, all your characters are really unhinged. And I was like, yeah, they all say what they mean, without hesitation. Because, we only got so much time. But, I feel like SSC is one of the things that we've talked about through seeing their influence on the world in many ways, even more than just interacting with them. We're like, oh, this is everywhere. Their collaboration and collusion with what's going on here is constantly reminded. Is it just constantly in stuff around us?
That was something that was kind of interesting. And I didn't see it showing up in the Barony's source book, right? But it just makes sense. Of course they're going to be baked into almost every level of this society in the Baronies because they're the luxury goods company.
Exactly. Well, because I think sometimes we're like, oh, a luxury goods company. What comes to mind about what that means is we're like, oh yeah, they make the fancy cars, and we're not like, when you say luxury goods, you are selling to a specific group of clientele, and you're engaging with that specific group of clientele. And I think it is sometimes easy to forget what that means about who you interface with and what it's from the car commercials. It's easy to divorce ourselves from but how did the people spending the money on those cars get that money?
Yeah. No, it is interesting looking at sort of capitalism right for the ultra rich, capitalism for the owner class.
I mean, I don't know if I was being too subtle, but like that is one of the right. That is one of the themes of the thing. That's why like that's one of the things about the Baronies is that it is like they're doing medieval power structures, right? But they're also doing like trade and capitalism. Like their wealth comes from resource exploitation and selling things and trade. And so I think part of the I don't want to give away the game too much, but like part of the idea of Divine Right of Kings was the way in which those two things are related. Like the way in which those two things mirror each other as power structures.
And that's one of the things, honestly, that I do feel like, as much as, almost, sort of fueled by, right, like a lot of online rhetoric, I do feel like they have a point, right, in that, like, to some degree or another, we know that the House of Water, right, for all the Republican ideals it has, is still stratified based on, sort of not social class now, but based on economic class.
Very much. Well, I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons why that conversation with Shifa was so important, because Shifa, like, I don't know if it was clear, but Shifa has done the trying to de-radicalize someone conversation once before, and it didn't work out. And so it was really important to her to have that conversation. And I think, because one of the things almost said was, like, in that moment was, like, oh, you're gonna, like, assumed that she was gonna tell him not to be angry. Because so often when people are like, I'm mad about people's mistreatment in the state of the world, they're like, but they get the response that, like, some form of the response of, like, you're rational for experiencing anger about this mistreatment. And so I really like Shifa engaging on that level of, like, I actually think it's valid to be angry that people are hurting, right? And it's not a question of is it okay to experience anger and frustration and upset at mistreatment happening in the world. It's a conversation about how you then resolve that and approach that as a problem. I thought it was really beautiful. I thought it was really valuable.
Well, that's the thing, like, in part of that conversation, what Olmo is trying to do, too, is just point out the fact that, yes, as much as we are fighting, right, quote-unquote, for, the people of this planet, we are still actually relatively privileged among the people of this planet, and, like, we're not plugged into necessarily the needs of the people fundamentally, so he just wanted to be very sure, right, that he was not going to see people hemming and hawing over the deployment of violence in order to protect what they did have, right? In order to protect the nice property, right, that Shifa had, or in order to protect the fact that, most of us at least don't have to work grueling 9-to-5 jobs. We're able to get by on other means.
Yeah. Well, that's also, chat, you were mentioning Union being limited in its ability to do stuff. Union, right, the Baronies providing the resources for Union to do the things it needs to do, and I think I was trying to bring that up at least a little bit in terms of, like, when the Union DOJ interviewer showed up, the auditor showed up, and part of that conversation was like, I'm restricted in the amount that I can help with this because I am restrained by these larger forces around me, and doing, like, really cosmically large math, right? And I think it's interesting to see. I lost my train of thought. No, come back. It's interesting to see that interplay between how people trying to help and what the limitations of that help can be and why those limitations are there. I will say this, behind the screen, every single time y'all have gone to negotiate with someone, and I do mean every single time y'all have entered a negotiation with someone, you have walked away with more concessions from that character than the GM, knew were available. Like, not because I'm like, GM, you get whatever you want, because you're so shrewdly negotiating that, like, you find new avenues to negotiation that I hadn't, like, I looked down and I'm like, that wasn't even on the list of things that I had assumed you would give them. Like,
Mars is, like, really talented at that.
it was fascinating.
Mars is like, I've played in multiple campaigns with Mars. They are very talented at business end of things in every campaign I've ever done. They're very savvy at it.
Like when they spent out 5%, I almost did a spit take.
Well, because like that's the thing is like she was already convincible. She entered that negotiation excited to negotiate because she was so excited to like. I'm not going to spoil too much, but I can spoil it. Like it's not. I don't think that's spoilers. But like she entered that negotiation at. I think it's so sick. I get to fight with the albatross. Let's kick some ass. I am bored. Which I promise that character is more nuanced than just wanting to smash shit in a very anime way, and there's reasons that she comes by sort of the belief systems that she has. We like her. She's not a.
I mean, we can learn more about her.
But
in the
we're gonna get
art.
to. She's got power and like a place in the story now.
You're right. I mean, that's the secret is that like when I say tournament arc, my goal is for tournament arc to mean an opportunity to spend a lot of interesting time with a lot of characters that we normally don't get to. Like that's well, I think when tournament arcs are at their best, we get to see it's because often they're an excuse to see a really broad array of characters we wouldn't normally get to see.
I've talked about this off screen, but I have tournament arc plans. I have plans and thoughts about what my character would do in the tournament arc that I've talked about.
Excited.
It's gonna be good.
I am very excited.
Oh, speaking of excited, I'm fascinated. I'm not gonna spoil anything. How do we, the three of y'all, feel about approaching the seat of the House of Kings?
I mean, so I don't want to give away my character plans, so I will not say too much, but it is deeply worrying. That's his boyfriend's dad. That's my.
You got
that
clearance
is my.
to kill the asshole. You got clearance.
That's fair, but also that's his boyfriend's dad.
Clearance.
No, listen. He has clearance. That is a last resort for him.
Alright, fine. Like, I do admit, we don't want to make martyrs here, but, you know, we need to, like, capture him at least.
I mean, I, as a player, I don't kill him. I, as a character, listen, that's a different story.
Yeah. Like, as an 18-year-old, you don't want to be killing this person, but,
Well,
like,
it's not
also...
even an 18-year-old. It's just, that's my boyfriend's dad.
Oh, yeah. I feel like the 18-year-old just compounds upon that already, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I appreciate this. Real quick, Harvest.
I as a person. Sorry, I as a person am. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Oh, for approaching the head of the House of Kings and like whether or not we're gonna kill a frail old man or not, I think that has to do with whether he's gonna be in a giant battle mech or not. Just narratively.
I think he's gonna be. You know that scene in the Lord of the Rings where
oh my god.
There is the frail old man in the chair and his like evil advisor whispering into his ear. I think that's how it's gonna be. I think we're gonna go in there and that's gonna be the scene.
I'm so excited.
Before, and there's a thing that has come to mind every time. There is one thing I associate with that, and that's the men don't need therapy. They just need to grab a sword and swing it around a bit, and they'll be better.
Yeah. It's true.
I mean, here's the thing. Sometimes it has, like, listen, physical activity is good for your health. Finding healthy ways to express your aggression also can be significantly good for your mental health. Like, it does make you better, actually.
I think people should give Bastion a sword.
I mean, doesn't Bastion already have a sword?
Bastion could like have had a sword from the start, but like I think it's important.
No, I don't mean like a sword as a mech. I just mean like give him a human sword.
Person should give you the sword with love.
I can make you a nanite sword.
there's a set of 8 swords that are still bouncing around this setting, of which we've seen 1.
There's 8? What are you talking about?
Wait, what the? Wait,
what do you mean?
Swords?
What?
Are you
What are you talking about?
All of a sudden?
Did you not?
Like, are these from the like cursors or?
Hey, so remember when? Oh, I'm sorry. This is not meant to be a revelation. Here, I'm just gonna bring up the deep plot points. Remember when? I didn't mean to stitch this together. I was gonna let you stitch this together on your own. So remember when Bastion was shot with a thing? TM.
Yeah.
Okay.
And remember when? Then Penn had a psychedelic vision.
Yes.
There were 8, and you saw 1, and that's part of the reason that there were 8.
There are 8 more of those things?
There are 7 more. There are 7 more. We don't know that they're all here. They might not all be here. But, like, I'm sorry. I don't know how to say this. As a GM, I take, like, psychedelic... Like, not psychedelic is not the word. Like, I take surrealist visions really seriously. So if there's symbolism in your surrealist vision that happens in one of my games, it's for, like, a really specific reason, because I think a lot about doing them well.
I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't understand what was happening in that bit.
You know, that's okay. They're not meant as a serious, sort of a serious layout. They're meant as a because when you get vague enough, I don't intend that to be like delivered plot information. I intend that to be like foreshadowing.
Is Bastion gonna get shot 7 more times?
Oh my god! There's 8 fingers, and they're all here to shoot that one boy.
I should say only if Bastion gets out of their mech 7 more times.
Right?
Like, at this point, I feel like we should have Jam Cockpit be used actively to prevent this behavior.
I mean, actually, though, Mars could do it.
Yeah.
Mars could do it.
I would like to go speak to a reaction.
Bastion opens his back. Reaction.
I at least one of you was here for the Game of Dark Heresy I ran, where someone used a player power to interrupt monologue as a free action. I was like, the villain of this arc is gonna monologue, and someone was like, I can interrupt any action. I would like to interrupt this one. And I was like, you know, that's fair.
I love a monologue, though. I love when a villain monologues at me. Detestable behavior. I think it's so fun.
We're here to have a giant robot fight, and I do mean that means we that does mean we monologue at each other about our philosophies while we smash giant action figures together, and it's so important to me. I love that. I love that deep in my soul.
I mean, if we don't have something to monologue about, what are we going to go ahead and say while we're attacking each other?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It gives Bastion a way to say cool one-liners.
I feel like if we didn't have something to monologue at each other about, we wouldn't be fighting in the mechs. We would be like, because by the time we're in the giant robots, things have brought us to this point, right?
I do have to get going.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Thank you all. We can start winding down. Thank you all for joining me for this little like round and or circle based table chat.
Next time, can you build a better? Can your table be less weird? Can you buy a better table?
I could buy a better table. Listen, Baz did tell me to hang the potato chips on my wall, but like the painting's a little greasy. I think it might leave grease stains, so I gotta change to something else.
No, the potato chips can stay.
Right, I hope you do leave grease stains on the wall.
Yeah, it's. I think the painting might be made of potato chips. Baz is very particular. Oh goodness. Well,
I just say that it's a very cool character idea, just in the chat.
Yes. Also, chat's been having awesome ideas all night. Chat, and everyone who's not chatting and just hanging out for any has hung out for any length of Lancer. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really glad any enjoyment you've gleaned out of this. I'm really glad. I'm very honored that you've hung out and you've enjoyed what we've been doing. I work very hard at my games, and I'm so glad that other people are getting to enjoy them. And thank you all for joining me, both for Lancer. Y'all have knocked it out of the park. I don't think this would be nearly the game that it was if y'all hadn't all of you brought such chops and such cool stuff. And thank you all for joining for also this little talk. I want to ask, does anyone have stuff they want to plug? Because I might this time, finally. Finally. Does anyone else have stuff they want to plug or think is interesting that's coming up?
I want to plug pie.
We love
Tis
pie.
the season of pie.
I'm so excited.
Eat some pie.
I have pie. I'm gonna go eat that in a sec.
I do have a plan to go get a giant pumpkin
What
pie
kind
and
of
just
pie?
scrunch down on it. What kind of pie?
I think it's pumpkin.
Oh my god,
Oh,
yes.
I'm a pecan pie enjoyer.
Yeah.
That is very good too.
I think it's superior.
Along with the potato chip compilation, at some point I'm going to post the compilation of sound checks, because we always do a sound check and it's always amazing. Where we do things like asking about what kind of pie you like. Harvestman, what kind of pie do you like?
Oh, I interrupted somebody and said Marionberry.
Oh my god. Mwah. Okay. And my short little pluggable, I guess it's not out yet, so I should wait till then. But I'm working on a bunch of projects that are actually going to release, some of which are going to release in the short term. I have a solo RPG about coming to terms with the future and raising an alien rock baby. It's gonna be cool. That should be coming out. I mean, if you're making the jam deadline, that's gonna be within the next 5 days. On my itch.io, I have the blue ski, the blue sky. Apparently, they're called skeets, by the way, which I think is the funniest thing that's ever happened.
What is the etymology of that?
So, because it's a tweet, but with an S at the front, so they're skeets.
Okay.
And I'm so excited for Lancer next week, y'all. I'm very excited for us to face the court, and I think it's gonna go really well.
I'm really excited.
I want to smash some X.
It's gonna be, would you believe, so normal. It's gonna be normal.
I know we're
We
gonna
might
try
have
to
to avoid this fight, yeah.
Yeah, we are gonna try to, but if we should fail, I won't be entirely sad.
Yeah.
Oh no. I'm so excited. I have plans. I'm that little, the comic of someone sitting there tapping plaintively and they're like, yes, how devilish, and they go back to tapping plaintively. That's me every day with Lancer. I'm so excited. But I think if that's everything, good night, everybody. Thank you again. Y'all rock. And have a good night, everyone out there in the world. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Alright.